Hi, it's Musolini, the Merchant of Success. Welcome. And in today's segment, we are going to talk about dealing with difficult people 2.0. Last time, in one of the segments, I talked about dealing with a difficult boss. But then some of you raised the question around what of other difficult people out there? If someone is not necessarily my boss, how do I deal with such people? All right. So that's the topic for today. So today we are looking at 5 different mindsets. The clarity, we look at the what and the why, then the mindset, the strategies, the skill sets, and of course, mastery. So with the clarity, see, when we talk about difficult people, we really mean people with certain personality traits or emotional characteristics that make it difficult for you to deal with them. Whether that background is pink, it reminds me of my daughter. Her favorite color is pink. So it could be that people who, not could be. So we are really talking about people with, what are those traits, emotional characteristics that make it difficult for an average person to deal with them, and how do you actually deal with those people? Now, these are some of the difficult to deal with people. We have the complainer. They are always looking for ways and means to complain. They have the complainer syndrome, if that syndrome exists. Then we have the braggart. He's always bragging how great they are, how big they are, how much more intelligent they are, how rich they are, how wiser they are. So they are always bragging, not always, but most of the times bragging. Then we have the narcissist. The narcissist is more keen to themselves. They think that the world revolves around them. All they care about is how happy they are, how comfortable they are, how excited they are. They don't care about who else or what else. So meaning if you're 10 people at work, if there's something that will make them happy, and even if it means blowing up music to the max and the rest of you are annoyed, but for them, they are happy. They will smile, even if you quarrel. So those are the narcissists. Then we have the disengaged fella. The disengaged fella is one who they don't care. They are not really involved. In fact, I was talking to one of my international coaching clients who was telling me of someone, I may not go into the details, of someone who is really not engaged at all. And this is someone above them. So, all they care about is not all they care about. They do not care about work. They do not care about being engaged or involved in things. Then the bossy type. These are characters whereby they want to show they have power. Even those who don't have power, they want to show that they are in charge, that they are the king of the jungle or queen of the jungle, if that exists. So they just want to show, demonstrate who is powerful, who is a biggie here. Then we have one who belittles others. And these, by the way, typically they have, for me, my assessment to that is these people usually have very low self-esteem. So the best way for them to feel big and better about themselves is to belittle others. So they are always looking. Sometimes it looks as if when they're in big settings, sometimes sounds as if they're just making fun. And if it's once in a while, that's understandable. But if it's always consistently that they are looking for ways to belittle others, to make others feel small, and that's the one who belittles others. And my assessment is such people typically, over 99% of the time, they have low self-esteem. And so they want to feel better therefore, for them to feel good about themselves, the rest have to be below them. So that's part of my psychological conclusion around that. Then we have the negative energy monger. These are people who are, you know, moody, they angry, nasty, they just looking for negativity. They just want to stir up negativity. They want to remind you about the negative things. They want to talk about negative things. They want to analyze negative things. They want to talk about how the world is hopeless, how everyone is hopeless, how the workplace is hopeless, how tomorrow will be hopeless and today is hopeless. So they have this negative energy about them that they keep spreading around. And of all the characters, when that to me is the most challenging to deal with, at least from my personal side, because energy is energy. Some of these other things can be dealt with certain psychological techniques, but if someone brings a lot of just negative energy, it can be very, very costly. Okay, you will feel it in your body. You will feel. You may come in excited and within a few hours, within a few minutes, you feel your energy is low because of the energy they are spreading around. Then we have the unappreciative. However much good you do, they don't seem to appreciate. And this could be your colleagues, could be your friends, could be your spouse, could be your workmate. Sorry, just in case you have a spouse like that, because then it can be extremely costly mentally and emotionally and spiritually. So there are people who just do not appreciate you. You give them food, they don't say thank you. You don't give them food, they quarrel. So, you know, some of the characters I like analyzing, say, at the workplace. So if you find if there is no tea at the workplace, they complain. You bring food. Okay, now that's the complaining side. So the unappreciative and the complainer, they are cousins. Okay, let me put it that way. But the unappreciative almost never says thank you. Okay? They are always looking for the shortage, so to speak. So why is it important for us to look at these characters, or how to deal with these difficult people? And okay, so please go ahead, type in those other personalities that I've not mentioned, the ones you feel that are difficult to deal with. Justin talks about the hypocrites. The hypocrites, they are double-faced. If there was two words to use, double-faced, meaning they put up one face here, you know, they will show you that they are happy with you, and before you know it, you hear them, you know, commenting how angry or annoyed they are about you or towards you. Those in Ethan's world, those are the ones that you know, to me, they're even more challenging to deal with than all these other characters, because at least for me, I really, really, for lack of a better word, cannot stand hypocrites. I would rather have someone who is harsh but tells it to me in the face. I'd rather someone say all the negative things but tell them to me in my face, but don't just go behind me. And if you've ever been that character, please never ever do that. It's one of the, in my view, it's one of the worst characteristics one could ever develop, of being double-faced. That's not being authentic. Okay. So in case you have any of those symptoms, please, you better solve that quickly. And if symptoms persist, please seek Ethan's advice. Moody people usually are just unappreciative and all that. Narcissistic. The ones who abuse everything and everyone, possibly we could come up with a name and we call them abusers. All right. And they are just, we'd call them quarrelsome people. You know, they are quarrelsome. They like quarreling about each and everything. Yeah, if we can just call them the quarrelsome ones. Okay. Those can also be, yeah, there are people even over small things they quarrel. And fine, it means they have some unappreciative energy, complaining, and negative energy, of course. Harsh people, the pretenders. the pretenders, did you mean like the hypocrites, Mary, or are you saying, okay, pretenders possibly are saying those who are not authentic, they are not plainly truthful. They are not plainly truthful, but they are not authentic. They do not put the actual picture in front of you. And those, of course, the hypocrites also pretend. So I'm just curious whether you meant the hypocrites, and you can clarify in the chat box. Rumor mongers, yes, that's a big, those are biggies. There are people whose strength is just to spread rumors. Those are also a very challenging character to deal with, definitely. Bully people, those would be under the bullies. Bullies, they're a bit the bossy, narcissistic bit, but a little edgy. Yeah, so bullies would also handle them under as a different character. Attention seekers, drama, yes. Yeah, we could call them drama kings and drama queens. Attention seekers, yes, they are people who just like drama. Okay. Proud people, I wouldn't necessarily call them difficult people. So proud would go under braggart. Akajanja n'entondo. Yeah, entondo would entondo would go under the complainer, the unappreciative, and all that. I know most. Yeah, that's partly bragging, but know-it-all. Yeah, they are called I know-it-alls. I know-it-alls. Yeah, they can also be quite a challenge. Double-edged swords. Do they outgrow these characters with age by any chance? Some do. Some do. Some do, some don't, because there are those who discover wisdom and off they go. Silent banners, okay. Those who think I'd bewitched always. No, that's negative. I wouldn't call it a character. Self-pity, no, that's just, negative energy, complainer, playing the victim at Teddy. Yeah. Okay, Emily's, I believe, bringing out the personality types. Emily, what do? You seem to know a lot of psychology and sociology. It would be good to, I remember you said an entrepreneur at one time. So you sound like you know a lot of psychology. Yeah, victims, that is more psychological than personality, I would say. Some people are lazy, money. Blackmailers. Oh, blackmailers. Oh. Yeah, those are nasty characters, definitely. And they have some of these other qualities. Narcissism, complaining, but blackmailers, those are, they backstabbers. Those are challenging. People who would like you to do things exactly like them and right all the time. All right, yeah, those can be quite a challenge indeed. Let me see who else. Am I in computing lecture? Oh, computing lecture at Makerere. Okay, that's cool. Liars. I can see I have a lot of social psychological knowledge. That's cool. Would love to know more. Please, let's talk. I love techies. I'm not a techie, so I always love being around technology people. People would like to do things. Okay. Yeah, so thanks for sharing that. That's a very rich list. I really appreciate that. So why is it important to know how to deal with difficult people? We deal with people who have a lot going on mentally. We just need to remember that. Also, you need to stay in control of your emotions while dealing with difficult people, because the last thing you want to do is to also, by the way, if you're not careful and you get lost in their world, you can also become like them. So you have to stay in control of your emotions. Because I'll tell you, just talking about these characters, I felt even my energy going a little lower. That's how challenging it can be. It will also help you avoid future negative consequences as a result of poor reaction. So what I mean by that is someone might say something nasty and you respond in equal measure, or you fight, and before you know it, you have a broken relationship, or you might cause unrepairable damage, whether at a mental, emotional, or career level. That has happened several times. I'm sure all of us can pick on those characters who could not control themselves over a certain hard to deal with personality. And in the end, you ended up losing than they did because you couldn't manage, or you didn't manage to deal with that person properly. Again, sometimes you see me using soccer examples. There are characters whereby they can be nasty. They get into the player's mind. One of my favorite players ever in terms of watching him, how he used to play, was Zinedine Zidane. So I believe they were playing against Italy, and one of the Italian players abused him on the pitch, and Zidane responded with a headbutt and batted this guy's chest, and he got a red card, and that affected his team. So, meaning his negative reaction, I mean, the fact that he reacted poorly, not that we can condone what the other fellow said. He said nasty things about him, which I cannot even say here live, but you know, he needed to have dealt with that better. He didn't know these skills better. Also, you need to learn when to stand your ground and when to back off, and I'll be talking about that a little later. So you need all these techniques and tactics to be able to save yourself or to avoid all these challenges, okay? Now, let's look at the mindsets for dealing with difficult people, some of these different personalities. The first mindset is the learning mindset. So you have to be open-minded. And you could even be such, as I'm thinking about it, when you say learning mindset, when these people are doing all these moves, it could mean that you really choose to study them, so that you're learning more about these personalities. Rather than just being totally put off, become a student of that. The other mindset, which is useful, is to remind yourself, this isn't about me, it is about them. And this is over 90% of the time true. People can only reveal themselves. They only reveal more of themselves than you. You see, a person who is happy, peaceful, has a positive attitude, is not going to say something nasty. They're not. Because goodness, you know, the Bible talks about fruits of the Spirit, but fruits of the Spirit is what's inside you. So if someone is behaving in a nasty way, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're nasty. It just means that they have nastiness in them. So that's a very liberating thought to say, you know what? It's just about them. They're just revealing themselves. The other mindset, which is one of the most important mindsets that you ever develop, regardless of the personality before you, is the curious mindset. Say, how come she's behaving that way? How come she's shouting? How come she likes rumor mongering? By the way, if you're a rumor monger, please stay away from that. It's not a healthy way to brand yourself. Spread goodness to the world. Spread goodness, my friend. So the curious mindset, how come this happened? And if you're dealing with them, if you're interacting with them, those of you who attended giving and receiving feedback, and those of you who have access to the recordings or are going to pick the recordings, again, remember you have that special offer running which will be expiring in about 1 hour. So there's that segment where I give you a formula on how to give feedback. But the second step, I beg your pardon, is to ask. Be curious. So when someone is shouting to you as an example, you can say, may I know what it is about me that makes you shout at me? See, that's curiosity. So you need curiosity at 2 levels. One, you can ask directly, depending on, of course, pay attention to your tone. Number two, ask yourself, I'm just curious, what's making him shout at me? Number three, it is at 3 levels. Curiosity, you can apply it at 3 levels, not can. It's one of the 3 options you can engage this in terms of this context. You ask the person directly, you ask yourself, then you can ask people in the know. Ask people in the know, or who could be knowing. Could you be having an idea what's going on with John? Because of late he has been shouting. And then those fellows might tell you. In one of the classes, where I was talking about this, I was letting them know about interpersonal relationship, interpersonal intelligence in one of the modules. I was sharing about how usually you don't know what's going on in people's lives. And one of the people who attended said there was this other boss who was extremely harsh towards her, and she even ended up resigning because of that, only to later discover that this person was actually going through a divorce. So, meaning she just made a conclusion that this person is just bad, and yet the truth of the matter is this person was going through some very, very tough times. That's why this assessment of it's not about me, it's about them. Typically, you find people are going through stuff more than you can imagine. I love this other mindset also. Their reaction doesn't define me or themselves. Okay. So if someone calls you a certain name, that's not an equivalent, that's not a true definition of you, because ultimately you're this special human being. Then also, let's remember, it does not define them. That's just a behavior. And therefore, just, I know we are putting labels for understanding's sake, but please do not reduce a person to just one form of behavior. Even though we may use that label, it could even be, rather than call, we are using labels in this context for understanding purposes. And yet, what is even more accurate, rather than say someone is a complainer, is to say, oh, that person complains. People who complain. Because a complainer, it's like an identity. They are that, which is not accurate, but they complain. Okay. So let's remember that it's just a behavior, not a total definition of who they are. Just in the same way, if someone accidentally labels you in a way that is not accurate, just know that it's not a total definition of you. The other mindset is the leader's mentality. In other words, do not be dragged to their level. If you go into the mud with whatever sort of animal you may think about, then you end up being muddy. So you need to keep a higher frame of mind. You need to keep a high ground, as always. Let them drag themselves in the mud or in the ground. But be careful not to end up fighting those characters that find mud to be their home. That's not you. So you can choose and say, you know what, mud is not my home. Mud is not my level. So I choose to stay on high ground. And I'll be showing you some of the techniques in which you can do that. So those are the general mindsets that will give you a healthier perspective or stand or frame that will help you deal with these different kinds of difficult people. The galaxy is just, and this behavior is hereditary in the genes. I wouldn't say so. There are certain personality types, so to speak. For example, you might find someone is the creative type, the other one is the logical type. Those are typically genetic. And while some of these other things like being narcissistic or being negative, the rumor mongering, the things we are talking about, hypocrisy, those are learned, they are not hereditary, okay, certain behaviors. So there's a difference between behavior and personality. Justine's asking, this isn't about me, it's about, does this mean ignoring in a way? Yeah, in a way, yes. But most importantly, the big picture is you having perspective, a healthier and more accurate perspective to say, you know what, it's really about them, not about me. It's to give you a healthier stand. Okay. But we just said we forgot to mention manipulators. Okay, that's an interesting one. Yeah, manipulators are also quite a character, indeed. Thank you, Patricia. That are quite difficult to deal with most times. Can you please? Yeah, so someone is saying that, you know, some people are too ambitious. And I would say I wouldn't be quick to make that assessment, because you see, too ambitious according to who? I would say too ambitious according to you. The question though is it a reality? Well, it's a reality in your world, it may not be a reality in someone else's life. There are people, and there are some things which for you are real or normal, while when other people look at you, they say, you're just too ambitious. For example, someone said, not someone said, for example, me making a decision to talk about when I made a promise to do 40 sessions non-stop. Someone might say that I was too ambitious, and in their reality, they are correct. But for me, I wouldn't say I was over-ambitious, I was just inspired. So it depends on the perspective. So in your view, yes, you have every right to hold that frame that someone is ambitious, and it may not necessarily be accurate. Yeah, so some of them are related, though most of what we are really focusing on are those other, what you'd call them off the edge or edgy characters that do not really fit into the, I remember the red, blue, green, yellow energies many years ago, so I don't remember the exact frame, but I remember like read the director types. So here what we are looking for, analyzing, what are those behaviors that are a challenge to deal with for you as a human being. And those are typically beyond even personality. So these personality types certain personality types are more inclined to adopt, certain personality types are more inclined to take on certain behaviors that we were talking about, but not always the case. For example, I'll tell you, like the director types would be most, like the red energy people would be more inclined to be bossy, which we mentioned as a not so good character, than someone who has a different energy. Yeah, so John just sent me a private message that according to Mark, setters reds are loud, abrasive, won't allow anything to stand in their way. Blues are full of life. Greens are terribly detailed, and yellows are kind. Yeah, so there are certain, so you'll find when I said like the reds, indeed, what I was mentioning, the red energy people, in that they are more likely to be bossy than say otherwise. But not every red is going to be bossy, because I also know of other people who are very red-like, meaning they have the director types, but they are not necessarily bossy. So there are certain personalities where you find some of these behaviors, they are more inclined to have those behaviors, but it's not always the case. So we are saying, what are those other behaviors that are difficult to deal with, and not necessarily, because I also don't want to box people, because in full, it's just that there are certain characters are more inclined towards certain behaviors than others, but though not always. Let me know if that makes sense. Is this my JB? The reds are cholerics, blues are the sanguines, yellows are the melancholic, and greens are the phlegmatic. Thanks, Emily. Yeah, and this is a side note, and this is a big side note. Since here we are talking about dealing with difficult people, but it's a big side note I want to highlight here, and that is, depending on which personality you find yourself in, this is a side note, but an extremely important one. Please listen to me carefully. because this is, I see some people being boxed in this, in not just this conversation. Just because you have a certain personality and the psychologists are describing you in a certain way, that is not finality. Okay? Because we know, according to science, that you can, with the science of neuroplasticity, that you can remake yourself. You can, so meaning, because there are people, for me, after all, I am a choleric, me, I was born a blue, I was born a yellow, a phlegmatic, or whatever it is, or these other personalities that John was reminding me about, according to Mark. So be careful not to box yourself and limit yourself. If there is a certain behavior that you feel is limiting you in terms of how to live in life, or how to succeed, or how you can accelerate, please take it from me that you can remake yourself. Just research, there is a way in how you can, but I won't go into, there is a whole science around that, but you research more about neuroscience, and neuroplasticity, then you will discover that you can remake who you are. So just be careful with this notion of, I was born with this personality, okay? Psychology always overpowers personality if you're consistent, if you work at it. Okay, there are certain things you may not necessarily over. If you were born, if by the age of 40, like me, you're at a certain height, there is a 99.999% chance that you will stay there at that height. But in terms of how I'm behaving, or how I've behaved over the last 40 years, does not mean that's the end. No, I can remake myself. I can change. There are even some energetic ways to change behavior and all that. So please let me know if what I've just said, you've picked it, because sometimes people also limit themselves and they forget that indeed things can work out. Emily says, yes, important self is to work on the weaknesses and maintain the strength. Each personality has strengths and weaknesses. Absolutely. So it is absolutely true. And that's why I'm saying, hey, if there is an area that you're not happy with, you can rework it. You can remake yourself. Okay. Now, can see we are behind schedule, so I'm going to run a bit. Let's talk about the 6 strategies for dealing with difficult people. Okay. And Mr. Vijayman, good to see you in the room. 6 strategies for dealing with difficult people. Number 1, inner focus strategy. You need to build your inner magic and resilience. Work on your self-esteem. Develop a tough skin. Have self-awareness that Emily was reminding me about. So the thing is, you need to build. If it is, it's not the stone that hits the wall that matters the most. What matters the most, it is what is the quality of the wall. If it's a concrete wall, the stone will hit and bounce off. But if it is a weak wall and the wall is just made of plywood, guess what? The stone will power through. So the trick is to build a concrete wall. That's what we mean by tough skin. You build your value, you build your self-esteem, you look at yourself in such a healthy way that regardless of what people say, you stay stable and steady. Next, there's what we call the third-party strategy. Sometimes you may need to involve a third party to help you out. This should be the last stage, where it could be a wise member of the family, or a board, a supervisor of that personality. Once you've attempted all these other strategies are not succeeded. The other strategy is the disengagement. This is key. Pick your battles carefully and limit contact points. Detach yourself, stay away, move on. There are those moments where you find that the best strategy is for you to disengage, because then you discover that constantly engaging keeps heading you into crossroads. There are those moments whereby disengaging is healthier than you engaging any further. So use your wisdom, but do not be quick to disengage right away, to run. Running is not a solution. Sometimes certain characters come into our lives because God is teaching us something and preparing us for something. This is what I mean. You could be aiming and dreaming of a bigger position. Let's just assume you want to become a CEO. Again, here I'm hypothesizing, but I believe I'm accurate. So let's just suppose you want to become a CEO. And God knows that where you're going, where your next assignment is the chair of the board is the bossy type. So what God will do is to bring a certain bossy character in your life and put that bossy character in your face. And the trick is for you to learn how to deal with that bossy type. Until you finish your lesson of dealing with that bossy person, then this other door of the next job as CEO, you will not get it. Because it means you're not yet ready. So there are certain characters that come into our lives to prepare us for something. Last time I talked about the life curriculum. So some people come to us to teach us something, to engage us in a way, or to help us develop a tough skin, or to help us to stop being bossy, or to drop some of these negative behaviors. So when I say disengagement, I'm not saying that should be your first point of connection, but one of those options. Okay. Oops, what did I do? Right. So the other strategy is the communication strategy. Ask them to listen to you. Be open. And what I mean by that is to stand up for yourself. You say, I kindly invite you to consider lowering your voice. Okay. Or I would appreciate it if you talk to me with respect or respectfully. And when you're talking to those people, especially the dominant types, the bossy types, look at them in the eyes. Because bossy types, the moment you seemingly switching off or stepping back, then they will think that they can take more on, they can take on more territory. So communicate, give them feedback, tell them what you think and feel. The other strategy is to take initiative, show your point of view, set boundaries, put your foot down. Say, you know what, no, I shall not take it on. Someone is calling you very late in the night, say, I'm sorry, past this time, I do not take calls because of ABCD. I'm sorry, past this time, I don't take calls because I make sure that by this time I'm in bed so that I can wake up the following day fresh and ready and productive for the day. Even if it's your boss, you can't say that. Say, by that time, I make sure that I sleep early to make sure, put my phone in silence, to make sure that I sleep, to wake up early and make sure that I'm productive for the day. See how I'm framing it? I'm framing it in the form of they will benefit. Of course, so there are those moments where I say, no, someone is asking you to do something illegal that you do not believe in. Say, no, that is totally against my values. I'm sorry, I shall not do that. Because, and then just because I do not believe, because I believe these things, one time they will catch up with us. Next, the pacifist strategy. What you do is, there are those moments where you feel you have to sell peace. Build rapport, stay peaceful. Don't return the anger. I have to say that. When you return anger with anger, you have fire. And when that fire blows up, it burns whatever it comes its way. Fire does not discriminate. Fire is fire. They will be burnt, you'll be burnt along the way. And even some other characters near you will also be burnt. So as much as possible, sell peace. Peace is always much better than just fighting and to show who has more powers. Okay, Gemini was saying that true, nobody's 100% blue. It helps to explain their behavior, but it's indeed a box to try to stay out of. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, these personalities, they give us an indication, and usually you find it's the dominant way of behavior, and it's never like 100% indeed that you find we have a part of that, just one part. And, 7 steps. 7 steps. Yes, I wanted to say 7 steps for dealing with difficult people. Step 1, awareness. How difficult is the difficult person? What are the triggers? What is the positive about them? So you need to know what is it that you're defining as difficult. Who knows? Sometimes it may not necessarily be that they are difficult. It could be that you have such a very high expectation, or you have a misinterpretation. So you need, that's why I'm saying, how difficult is the difficult person? It could be that you're misjudging them. Sometimes that's the case. And also, what are the triggers? What triggers you for you to feel like the difficult person, a challenging person? And the other trigger side, which I highlighted in one of the programs for the difficult bosses, is what is it that triggers them? What do you say or don't say or do or don't do that triggers them for an outburst, as an example? That's awareness. And what is positive about them helps you to have a fair assessment of who they are, because it can't be that they are totally bad. There must be something. Every individual has something positive about them. The second step is self-management. Stay in charge of your emotions. Stay calm. Give yourself time to cool off. And that's why I liked one of the topics that some people proposed is emotional intelligence. So that's definitely going to be on the cards next week. Emotional intelligence, I'll talk about that. But self-management is key. Please manage your emotions. Be in control of your emotions. As much as possible, stay calm. Now, one of the things which I found to be extremely useful when I'm not happy about something, I consciously want to bring my tone down. Why? Because in moments of conflict, tone is the most important. The tone you use is going to overpower, is going to override whatever else you say. The tone. So you consciously say, you know what, Ethan, bring your voice down. Okay. The third step is the end goal dissection. What do they want? What do I want? Is it achievable? So you need to define exactly, what do I want out of this conversation? So don't just speak far. You don't just make comments or speak up. What do you really want? What's your goal? When it comes to communication, you should always be purposeful. What do you want to achieve? If it is peace, as an example, so is what you're doing and how you're doing it going to get you that? If yes, continue. If no, change the strategy. Then ask yourself, what do these people really want? What do you think this person wants out of this? And sometimes it's okay if context allows. Please remember, I'm using the word context because not every context is going to allow that. If context allows, you say, okay, out of curiosity, what is it that you would what would be a successful outcome out of this conversation for us to, start I'm aware, and then we can both agree whether we are making progress or not. Then you're helping the person to also be purposeful. Of course, there are contexts where such a question would not apply, but there are moments whereby it would be useful. So it could even be one of those showstoppers, one of those things that may even stop a person in their tracks to think, as I'm thinking about this, in that let's just suppose someone is shouting and always say, by the way, can I ask a question? Notice I'm asking permission. Say, yeah. So out of curiosity, I'm wondering, not the tone again, I'm just wondering, at the end of the day, what is it that you're looking forward to achieving by shouting at me? If they really have a certain sense of intelligence in them, then that is a question that will make them to stop and think. I will tell you something, even if their IQ is low, whatever it is, they may even blast off even more furthermore. But I will tell you such a question, when they go home and they are relaxed, they will reflect on it. So questions are powerful. So these are questions you can ask yourself internally and you can even verbalize if context allows. Again, context. At the end of the day, please respect. Always respect people, please, regardless. Respect people. Keep it as one of your minimum standards, in that I shall respect people. Because in life, I believe you get what you put out there. If you're disrespectful, people will disrespect you. Now, there are also moments whereby you may respect someone and they don't respect you. So it's not a law. Having said that, at least do your part. I always tell people, do your part that you are in control of. You don't have control over how someone is going to respond. And I usually tell people do not owe you anything. Just hold, that's actually a very healthy mindset, by the way, to dealing with these people. No one owes you kindness, love, joy, respect. No one owes you any of that, but you owe it to yourself. When I say owe you, I mean, there's no law that says that thou shalt speak to you in a low tone. It's not there. Therefore, do not go around begging for it or keeping it as an absolute standard. You can expect it, but do not keep it, do not be so attached to it. So when you do not, so if you don't take it like they owe you that, then even how you communicate will be different. So it's an attitude thing. So it's how you, so this is about you managing your sanity. You might say, oh, but they surely should respect me. Yes. That's the ideal. But you and I know you don't have control over that ideal. So why torture yourself? Expect it, find a way to influence it to come to you, but do not feel so attached to it. Next is share your perspective always. I really believe in sharing my perspective. If someone is, if someone happy about something, I believe in sharing that perspective. Like I told you, I cannot, it's up to now, I'm still finding it difficult to tolerate hypocrites. So therefore, I would rather share my perspective. You'll not hear me backbiting. I will talk to that person. Even if I talk about that person in a certain way, then it means I've already said it to them. Not to you first and they don't know. No. I believe in looking at the person in the eye, telling them what I feel. Next, responsibility. Stay in charge, stay in corner. And by the way, this part of sharing your perspective, not everyone is going to love it. Not everyone is going to like it. I really believe there is a client we bumped into and I was sharing my perspective and they didn't take it very lightly. And even though I said it with as much professionalism as possible, but they're the kind who are not used to being challenged or questioned, and it rubbed them the wrong way. But you know what? I do not regret it because at least everything I did it respectfully, but they are not used to being questioned or challenged. But in a way, for me, I'm at peace with that because I feel I shared my thoughts. Me just shutting up, I feel I would be inauthentic. I would be lying. I don't know how to be a liar. I don't know how to do that. And I feel it's unhealthy for you not to share your perspective if chance and opportunity is there. If the chance and opportunity is there, and that's why, again, I kind of, those of us who have ordered for the recordings, please go through that program on giving and receiving feedback. It will change your life. I guarantee it. Next is responsibility. Stay in charge, stay in control. So remember, you are responsible for your life and you're responsible for the results you're getting out of the conversations you're engaged in. You're responsible for whatever it is that you want to get. It is your life, my friend. Therefore, live it the way you'd want to live it. Do not let your emotions swing you out of proportion or out of control, so to speak. So remember, it's your life, stay in charge, period. And the last step is walk away where necessary. And sometimes this should be the last resort, and sometimes that could be the first resort, depending on the context. There are certain characters, you're in a certain situation, in a certain context, you'll find that the first, what I'm considering to be the last, should be the first step. If it's an extreme case, walking away would be a much healthier option. All right. So someone was asking that the boss's triggers are not clear. And by the way, I would encourage you, if you got for those of you, if you got the recordings, please go through how to deal with difficult bosses. I go into detail about that. But let me just give you some quick tip. So you find one of the most common characteristics that people really find difficult is these bosses who shout, as an example. And I'm here to say that there are certain bosses who also, not certain bosses. So you find that people, their bad side or their bad character, so to speak, is the area you typically shows up when they are rubbed the wrong way. Just for example, for me, I get rubbed the wrong way on the segment of, say, if someone is disrespectful or hypocrite, that really rubs me the wrong way. It's hard for me to process. So there are certain characters, for example, when you delay to submit a report. So for them, timeliness is a must. The same way Ethan cannot stand disrespect or hypocrisy. So therefore, once you know that timeliness is extremely important to this person, and you know that if you're late, you're going to get shouted at. Therefore, know it and do it ahead of time so that you are out of their way, okay? So that you can be saved from being at the receiving end of that big shout. That's what I meant by the boss's triggers. So identify a difficult person within your circles. Apply the 6 strategies given to you in the next 4 weeks. So just identify that person and then apply these steps, which I just showed you earlier. So that is minus the walking away, because that's the last resort. So just apply these steps and then see how you manage, okay? Yeah, so these principles don't just learn them by yourself. John Bijemano has groomed his son. Even when he was still in primary, he was reading these useful books. And even when he was in primary, he was already speaking and training people. Now he's 18, but he has super confidence and a lot of wisdom than some of the 30-year-olds I know. So what I'm saying is, you expose your children to these principles as early as possible. Let them sit. They are wise. They are much wiser than you can think. Let them listen to these ideas and principles. Okay. So cool. Now, so remember to reflect, what did you find most useful in this presentation, and how are you going to implement the lessons moving forward in your life, career, stroke, business? So that should be the other question you should ask yourself, okay? Nathan, okay, so Hamza asks, Ethan, kindly share practical examples when to react and to back off. So let me give you an example. Let's just suppose you have this boss who shouts at you. Now, in that moment, you can go into the room, book a time when you can meet him one-on-one to say, I would really appreciate it if you spoke to me in a lower tone, in a respectful manner. Okay. Now, if the same boss shouts at you in front of everyone and they are a bossy type, if you choose to take them on and they have a huge ego, just expect fireworks. So you backing off and acting like nothing has happened, or you staying calm, would be a better option for you. That's not the time for you to react or to respond. And then staying with the same example, if you've given feedback consistently and you notice it's heading the wrong way and it's becoming a fight, you can back off. And and backing off might even mean looking for another job or just walking away, depending on other context. So that's just an example that I'm giving. So with your boss, stand up one-on-one in public, back off, and do not fight them in public, because then such people have huge egos. So now you are attacking their ego. they will want to show who is a biggie here. Ben is it okay to make it to 5 steps, not 7 steps, or some important steps will be left out? Okay. So let me look at those steps that that's a good step. I mean, that's a great question. So let's go back to the steps here. So to see. So he's asking, is it okay to leave, say, step 7 and step 1? Absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, walking away where necessary is optional and it should be the last resort, so to speak. But the responsibility up to 6, responsibility is always important. And when I give you these steps, it's not like a rule that thou shalt take it all the way to 6 steps. For example, if you recall, I said sometimes walking away could be your first step, because depending on what's happening, that's what is necessary. So my job is to give you an ideal setup or ideal step-by-step advice on what to do. Now, some of these steps may not work, okay, depending on the context. But having said that, for example, they share your perspective always. For example, that may not always work. It could be that you sharing your perspective is more harmful than anything else. But when I look at it very critically, these other principles, they would still be useful regardless. The awareness, the end goal, self-management, respect, responsibility. These 5 should be a standard. These 2 are optional. That's what I would say. So I would say number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, because this is about you self-management and having clarity and all that. That should be a standard. 5 and 7 are optional. That's what I would say. John says cost-benefit analysis to backing off. Exactly, brilliantly put, John, because there could be you sometimes stepping in there is more costly. You know, I will give you an example. When one time I heard about this statement when I was in the US doing an internship, and someone said that never argue with the truck, meaning when you're on the road, even if you are in the right, just you wanting to demonstrate that you're right could end up, yeah, the truck will, hey, you know what? I don't want to even say. So that's cost-benefit analysis. So that's what I mean by that as an example. All right, great. Looks like that's all the questions we had. That's fantastic. And